It was just the most massive thing I've ever seen. To tell you the honest truth, I thought, well, we're the only ones left on this planet. Something's happened. We've missed something here.
The fear that went in me when I seen it was just like the feeling. I'd say it was fear, but I've never felt that feeling before in my entire life.
It's a weird feeling, like you can't explain it when you don't know. You feel like you're being followed, but you don't know what it is.
We had two to our right, another one in front of us, another one to the left, and another one just across the road, shaking the daylights out of the tree. All we get was a big red eye.
I remember waking up and looking at the end of the bed, and there was a figure there, almost insect-like, and then I blacked out.
Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Cade Moyer, and you are listening to the Believe Paranormal and UFO podcast. If you have had an encounter and would like to share it, please get in touch with me. My email address is believepod@gmail.com. If you enjoy the podcast, be sure to leave us a rating or review wherever you listen, and head on over to our website, believepod.com, and consider becoming a member to get bonus episodes and video content. Tonight I'm joined by Aaron, and Aaron had a rather fascinating encounter back in 2013 in Williamstown of Victoria. So Aaron, welcome to the show, mate.
Hello, Cade. Thanks for having me.
You are going to put me out of a job with a voice that velvety, my friend. When you first jumped on the Zoom call here, I kind of asked a question straight off the bat of saying, Aaron, are you a voiceover artist? And you confirmed it, mate. You have got the golden voice for radio.
Too kind. Thank you. Your check's in the mail.
Now, anyone working at that radio station, please let Aaron just get the bigger chair, the bigger desk, because as soon as we started chatting, I had a feeling I've heard your voice before, and I have no doubt that you've probably voiced a handful of ads on national stations. So, mate, I'm super cool. I'm super thrilled to be chatting to you, because anyone who works in the radio field is going to make my job extremely easy. But mate, take me back to 2013 and kind of walk me through what happened on this ghost tour that you went on.
Yeah, okay. So, it was May 2013. And best mate and I, we had a weekend of ghost adventures to look forward to. We were going, I'll work backwards. On the Saturday night, we were going to be going to Williamstown, to Arradale Asylum in Ararat. But the night before, I was thinking, this is just going to be the warm-up act. We've got Saturday night to look forward to. But Friday night, let's just do this. And that was a ghost tour around the town of Williamstown in Victoria. And so my best mate and I, we're doing this tour. And we go into it's where you walk out the front of all these buildings and people are taking photos. And I'm thinking, you know what? I've seen these buildings. I can drive past these buildings anytime. I don't need to take a photo. My memory's going to do me wonders. I don't need to take any photos. So I think there was one or two buildings we went into, but the rest of them we were all sort of walking out the front. And again, I just refrained from taking photos. But we got to this one building called Timeball Tower, which I know had quite a deep history, as a lot of those buildings did that we were walking through. This was one that we were allowed to go inside, only into the base of the building though. And that was, we went down and in, and it was not a real good one for people that are claustrophobic. But of course, to look above me where there was a padlock for people to, walk the stairs or the ladder to get up to the top of the tower, that was well and truly rusted closed. There were cobwebs all around it. We weren't allowed up there. No one had been up there for quite some time. It was no longer structurally safe, I think were the words they used. So we weren't allowed to go up there. We were just allowed in the base. Once again, we get outside the tower and people are grabbing their phones and taking photos. Oh, and all of a sudden with this one, no, that's, oh my God, I can't believe my camera's not working. I can't see, it's not working for me. Oh no. And I'm thinking, the hysteria. Once again, another reason why I'm not bothering to take photos. At this point, my best mate, he's quite a softly spoken guy, he's quite calm, quite chilled, doesn't get caught up in hype, really. He's gone for his phone and to take a photo himself to see if it would work. And I saw with my own eyes that he couldn't zoom in. he's holding his phone up to the night sky, and you would expect to see the tip of the tower, or, the tower as it's sort of narrowing upwards. But it wasn't happening. There was nothing there. He was trying to zoom in. You could see a sort of a bit of a blur of something, but there was no focusing, and there was no getting to see that tower through his phone at all. So by this time, I'm interested, and I thought, well, we got the same phone. It was 2013. Both of us have always liked to be up to date with the latest iPhones. Both had iPhone 5s. So I thought, well, he's got the same phone as me. I'm going to get out mine and try. Mine actually worked. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. The photo actually worked for me. I thought, whatever. Okay, phone back in the pocket. We'll continue the walk. So we've left Timeball Tower. We've walked on towards where the next location was going to be to take photos. And I thought, I'll just get out my phone and have a bit of a look at the photo. And I thought nothing of it. I looked at it at first, and I think I looked at maybe a window. There were 4 windows running vertically from the top of the tower down to the base, and something didn't look right in one of them. And I could just feel that it was a bit unsettling. And I thought, I don't know what it is. So I put the phone away, and anyway, a couple of minutes later, I've got it, have another look. And I think it was the second window down from the top, I zoomed in as far as I could go, and there's a face. And I was that freaked out that normally, I don't know what came over me at that moment. I was ready to delete that photo. I thought, this isn't right. I don't want this being carried around in my pocket with me. I was ready to delete it. And then I thought, no, I don't think I will. So I kept it. I showed my mate. He was equally as fascinated. I showed the tour guide. She asked me to send it through to her, and then she shared that with the wider group as well after the tour for those that wanted to see it again. But that was really freaky, and to this day I can't explain that one, Cade. I've looked at it a few times. I've shown a few people, and to me they talk about it. I don't know how to pronounce the word, pareidolia or something, where it's just a collection of things that make it look like a face. But to me, I can't explain this one. There's a face, it's of the right proportion in the window, and I've got no other explanation for what that was.
It's rather interesting considering that you're such a tech head, because I consider myself a bit of a tech head myself. I'm always wanting, the newest phones, or the kind of the best cameras, or the best kind of, whatever I'm kind of interested in at that moment. And for all the cameras of everyone else not to be working, that is really, really odd. And considering that your best mate had the same phone as you, and his camera wasn't working, like it wasn't able to focus or anything like that, that's really puzzling. That really would have got me questioning, like, what is going on here?
Well, I think my mum summed it up best. And again, I don't know how deep to get into this, but my mum's first reaction when I told her and showed her the photo and explained the backstory was, whatever that was, wanted you to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's my mindset around it as well, because it's not to say it's fate or anything like that, but it definitely sounds like you were chosen to see this. And what's really weird about that is whatever this thing was knew how to interfere with everyone else's devices but yours.
And especially in the open air, like it was outside. We were all fairly scattered over the space of about, I don't know, just under 100 metres, I would say, but we're all sort of fairly scattered out in our groups. My mate beside me, obviously, we've all, it just made no sense at all. And again, it could have been really easy to just go, you idiots, getting all caught up in this silly hype. But when my mate did it, and I saw with my own eyes that it didn't take, there was nothing in that photo, then it worked for me straight away. It's just, it still just baffles me.
How long into taking that, or how long after taking that picture, did you realize that there was that face in the window?
I reckon probably somewhere between about 5 to 10 minutes, I think. Because again, I just sort of thought, well, I've got to keep up with the group. We're walking in the dark. I don't want to trip on anything. So my focus was just walking with the group. But it was only when I thought, I'm just going to look at that photo that I took that, there's obviously, that's when it started coming back to me that was a weird moment. It worked for no one else, including my mate with the same phone. And that's when I thought I'll actually get this out and have a look. And so, yeah, like I'd say, about 5 to 10 minutes, I think.
When you finally saw what you saw in the window there, you said it kind of made you want to feel like you wanted to delete that photo. Was there a sense of like fear around like, I've caught something I shouldn't have here?
I think so. It was a feeling that as much as I try to put myself back in that mindset, I just can't anymore. For whatever reason, and I'm very proud of that photo now. I hang on to that, and I've made several copies to back that up. But in that moment, Kate, I don't know what happened, but I just was like, no. I can't have this. That's wrong. It was a weird feeling.
Yeah, like you've seen something that you shouldn't have, or you've caught something that you shouldn't have.
Something that I feel like that night would have given me nightmares, if that makes any sense. I don't know, but I thought that nightmare's gone. If I press delete on that photo, I'll never see it again. But, obviously I came to my senses, and I'm really glad I kept it. Yeah, no, I'm glad you kept it too, because the photo it's super intriguing. And if it's okay with you, I'd love to feature it on the episode show notes on our website. Yeah, bring it on for sure. I'd welcome anyone else's opinion on it too.
Yeah, excellent. And what I'll do is I'll try to get the highest, cleanest resolution version of it from you, because whenever people try to send images through like email and stuff like that, they always seem to go a little bit crappy and a little bit average. So we'll give people the best opportunity to see the highest resolution copy of it. But I totally understand that mindset of like, you've just kind of peered into this world that isn't supposed to be real. And I guess the flight or fight response there is kind of like, is this all going to come and follow me home, or is weird stuff going to happen to me now? And
it's funny, I can't even try to reason with what was going on in my head at that time. I mean, the strange thing is I put myself in that situation, Kate. Like, I was there for the tour. I knew the next night I was going on something possibly even more freaky to an abandoned mental asylum. But for some reason, I don't know what it was, even though I'd brought all this on myself, I didn't want to see that photo.
Yeah.
In that moment.
It's kind of like you've just confronted the unknown, and the unknown has welcomed you.
Yeah, for sure.
It truly is a paradigm-breaking moment that you've had there. And I think you've probably had a lot of trouble understanding what's happened or trying to rationalize it. And the natural response is, I don't know, let's get rid of it. I don't want anything to do with it. And I think a lot of people probably be in that same boat with you there, Aaron.
And it's funny though, I've often thought to myself, we're 11 years down the track now, going back and trying again and see whether it would work this time and what would come of it. But yeah, who knows what would happen. Maybe that night was just special for whatever reason. It was really interesting. Yeah,
like you didn't have to sacrifice anyone or anything like that once you got home to keep the image.
No, I was no goats, no people, nothing harmed in the making of this memory.
No, that's great. Were you really a fan of the paranormal before going there? Because obviously, you're going on these ghost hunts, and that's a very obvious solution to go, hey, we're going to see maybe something weird. But were you just doing it for the laughs and the fun of it all, or were you someone who was genuinely interested in the paranormal?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was me that got my mate to come along with me. It's always been something that's fascinated me. A few years before that, I'd been to Geelong Jail. I'd worked at a radio station that was allegedly haunted in Western Australia. It goes back, I think I can remember a moment in primary school where we all thought this house across the road from the school was haunted. And I think at that moment, it just planted the seed that if I happen to overhear something, that's a conversation I want to listen to about the paranormal. It was something that became an interest.
Yeah, I totally get that. And the fact that you had that reaction to what you got on the camera makes that even more fascinating to me, because it's almost like I've gone out of my way. I've gone to see this, and now that it's there, it's kind of shocked the reality of that situation.
Yeah, and I've been on a few ghost tours since. I've never, ever had anything comparable to that happen since that photo.
So what do you think it was about that situation? Like, why were you able to get that image and no one else? And I know we're probably leaning into the world of speculation a little bit, but I would be interested to hear your thoughts because, you know, your mum said that she believes that you were maybe chosen to take that picture, but us being almost 11 years on now from that encounter, what's the mindset that you have about it now that you've had nearly, well, over a decade to kind of reflect on it? And now a quick word from our sponsor. Also, are you wanting more content? Why not become a Believe Plus member? You'll get access to exclusive podcasts and episodes that aren't available to the public. Not only that, you'll also get our regular feed without any ads. Head to believepod.com/plus to sign up today for just $5 a month.
Well, I guess if I'm perfectly honest, this has only started occurring to me in the last couple of minutes since we started moving in this direction. But for a long time, I was like, well, what's Timeball Tower in Williamstown got to do with this moment? I've never studied. I would actually have to Google again to see exactly what a time ball is. I think it's something to do with keeping time for the ships out at sea is what the best that I can understand it. You know, I'm really uneducated on this stuff, Cade, but I think I'm quite a punctual person. I don't like to be late for things. I don't know whether there was anything in that or not, but, you know, again, whatever it was had to somehow get through a message to me that I was going to be taking a photo, you know, to take that photo. Because, as I said, for the rest of the tour, before that moment, I was like, oh, for God's sake, I don't want to take a photo. You know, I'm not caught up in this hysteria. I don't need to see it again. But yeah, for that exact moment, I was like, I'm going to take a photo here. And I don't know what made me take that photo in that moment.
It's really weird, isn't it? And it has my mind going a million different ways, but it makes me wonder if somehow you have a personal connection to this place, or, you know, do you have a connection to the paranormal that you maybe don't understand or you haven't realized yet? And I know that's complete speculation, but, you know, have you ever found yourself in situations where you can feel the vibes different from anyone else or anything like that?
I think probably the closest thing I've got to match to that was coming up to about a year ago. It must have been March last year. I'd had my first psychic reading just for fun. I'd always wanted to do one, but I was never at the right position to go, right, I can justify spending this money now. But I was walking again with my mum through Hastings, the town that I grew up in, and there was a psychic place we were walking past, and Mum's like, go on. And I said, Mum, I can't justify that right now. She's like, fine, I'm paying. Do you want to do it? Go, go, go. So I did. I had the reading, and in that discussion with the psychic, something was mentioned about someone that's been sticking with me for my life, a past relative that had perhaps passed, you know, I didn't live in the same time frame as them, but they were apparently keeping watch over me to make sure I was okay.
That's interesting. I too spoke to a friend of mine who was a psychic, and she told me that I have an older woman attached to me watching over me. I've never seen this woman or anything like that, but the psychic could apparently make her out clear as day and just watches over me while I'm doing these podcasts and things like that. So I don't know how much of that type of stuff I believe, but I do find that woman to be highly, highly credible. And I would never call her a liar or think that she was trying to trick me. But it's so similar to what you're explaining here, that maybe you do have this thing following you, and that the reason you could see this is maybe that whatever that spirit was could have been looking at whatever was following you.
I'd never looked at it like that before, Cade, but it's definitely a possibility. All I know is this guy was a male. He's somewhat playful. He was perhaps, I think we worked out the brother or the father of my grandmother, I think was what we narrowed it down to. But yeah, he'd been there, and you know, there was talk. She was asking me about, did your mum or anything ever see you looking at anything in the cot when you were a baby? But again, I didn't sort of really give that much thought when I was having that reading, but it's only now I guess I'm joining those dots a little bit.
Yeah, it's fascinating when you kind of start to air these stories out and kind of get those different perspectives, how different things may have this fine thread of a connection.
Yeah, so it's not something I've ever really given much thought to before, but something had to make that moment occur, and it's definitely something beyond what we can understand.
So you went out on this ghost tour, obviously, hoping to see something, and it's a very rare thing that people actually have an encounter while on a ghost tour. I guess yours is a little bit different. Like you kind of had your encounter once you looked at a photo and you probably passed that moment. Did you ever want to run back to where that happened after you saw what was on the photograph?
No, actually, I absolutely did not. I think time there has been the biggest, little mystery there that's made me want to go back. But certainly at the time, I had no desire in going back to that moment. But, like I said, 11 years on, I'd be happy to go back and try again.
What do you think it was that you saw in the window there that night?
Well, it was clearly a face. From the people that I've asked, it's definitely not a happy face. It's generally the people that are sort of more in tune with this kind of stuff have said that it's a sad face. People are seeing a sad face in that photo. I don't know how much you've looked at it yourself, Kate, but to me, it's like there's something over the head, like a hairnet or something. I feel like I can see, but there's definitely a different coloured skin tone to the rest of the photo, which I think is what made me, not just gloss over it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Like, you can see there is definitely something to this. And the thing that I find most credible about this is that the building was too faulty to get up to where this image is. Like you said, the building was falling to bits. It was unsafe to go up to those higher areas. I think you said even the door to get up to that area was rusted shut. So, like, what's going to be up there?
Yeah, I think the fascinating thing about it too is just how in proportion that face is to the window around it. That it would pass as a face because it's the right size.
Yeah, it's really hard to doubt what you've captured here on your phone. And I tell you what, I'm rather impressed with the quality of the image from an iPhone 5, because at nighttime those things are usually pretty rubbish, and the fact that everyone else is having an impossible time capturing it, and you've almost got this, I wouldn't say crystal clear image, but you've got this image that is definitely viewable, that has detail in it. I think it's fantastic.
Probably won't frame it, but it's definitely one I'm hanging on to.
No, absolutely. It's kind of like the pride and joy of your paranormal experiences. But you did mention earlier there that you've had some encounters at a haunted radio station, and I feel like this is an excellent segue into kind of finding out what happens at a haunted radio station, because radio stations are very unique kind of buildings. There's a lot of soundproofing, there's glass everywhere, so I could imagine reflections could be potentially popping up all over the place. Are you able to tell me a little bit about some of the things that you heard happening in this radio station?
Yeah, sure. So for me, what fascinated me the most, Kate, is it's not an old building. I believe they had the two stations running in that building. The first of the stations went on air in the late 80s, and I'm not sure if the building was there for another purpose before that, but it wasn't an old building, which is what made it seem so unusual. I don't think I knew at this stage that the building was haunted, and if I certainly hadn't had that Timeball Tower experience yet, I wasn't as awake to things as I perhaps would become in the later years. But it was about 5 o'clock one morning. I was one of the breakfast announcers at the station, and I was the only one there by a long way. My co-host wouldn't arrive usually until about 5:45 in the morning. Sometimes the cleaner would be around if he came in really early. He wasn't there that morning. There was nobody there. I turned off the alarm when I entered the building for the first time, pitch darkness. Went into my office, just sort of down the hall there, and my job at that hour of the morning at about 5 is to start going through the news websites, news.com.au, ABC, all those sites, and just see what was popping up as a common theme among all of them. Get a bit of a sense for the day, work out what we're going to be focusing on through the breakfast show. And as I'm doing that, I hear a cough. It was sort of, it's one of those weird things that with your ears that exactly where it's sort of coming from based on, what's going on around you. To me, it was out the hallway and, about one step to my right where that cough would have been coming from. And I'm working away, I heard the cough and I thought, oh yeah, cough anyway. And then I thought, hang on a minute, I'm the only one here. And that's where I went, this is wrong. What the hell was that all about? I didn't give it too much thought, but I thought that was definitely weird. So I waited until my co-host got into the building. And this is a bit of an interesting turn. I don't think I put this part in my initial email to you, but we've got plenty to talk about when the songs are on and we talk amongst ourselves. And I said, the weirdest thing happened to me this morning, and told her and mentioned about the cough. She goes, oh, that's just Bob. Anyway, I had a bit of a laugh about that. That's just Bob, whatever. Later on that morning, when my boss got in and a couple of others who'd been at the station 7+ years and they'd been around, a long time, I was told that there used to be a technician who was quite married to the place, elderly guy, absolutely loved that radio station right till his dying moment, which was of emphysema. He had a breathing, a lung disease, and he had a very distinctive cough, I was told.
Oh, wow.
Which just sent the shivers down my spine. And they said, yeah, Bob, he was a great guy. And I went, Bob? I went back to my co-host. I said, did you know something about this? She said, I just picked a name out of thin air.
No way.
Obviously, Bob's somewhat of a common name, but it was very bizarre that she had picked that name. Even more bizarre that there was this guy called Bob who had such a recognisable cough and was just married to the radio station. In our industry, there's people who are just so dedicated. They spend every waking moment there when they can. And yeah, this guy, Bob, was apparently one of those people.
That is so surreal. And the fact that and I know exactly what you mean when it comes to like these people who are almost married to the location. They breathe it. And that is incredible. The fact that he had that condition, he had that hallmark cough, and that's what you heard. And then I don't know if you said it was a station manager or not, but someone else who worked there for years and years and years indicated it may have been him. I wonder if
there were a few of them. It was a station that was made up of people who'd only been there a year or two, or had been there for absolutely forever. And I was able to speak to a few people one-on-one who were saying, yeah, Bob, God love him. He was just that loved in the place.
Did anyone else have encounters with this thing?
Well, I'd heard from other people that the building was haunted, and it surprised me, actually. I never really got them to explain their stories. Maybe I was a bit too self-involved back then to ask questions of other people. But yeah, it was... There definitely had been people talk about the place being haunted before.
That's creepy. It's creepy. It kind of sounds like a bit of a B-grade horror movie where someone new's coming to work at the radio station. Oh, just be careful, it's haunted. Watch out for Bob, and mayhem ensues, because that is mind-bending. I would love to work at a haunted radio station. I'm convinced my podcast studio is haunted because I see weird little figures in the corner of my eye in there. And I've had an encounter with some type of person looking around the corner, and I thought it was someone wanting to rent the studio. And I said, oh, hey, just a second. And they ran away. But
oh God,
yeah. And I swear I've had someone touch me on the back in there as well, but that's about it. And I'm the only person who's had these encounters in that studio. But what a surreal thing that would be to go to work every day and kind of just know that everyone in the building is so on board with, hey, yeah, this place is haunted. And it's probably Bob, because he was such a sweet guy and he loved working here, that he's decided to hang around with us for however long he's going to.
Yeah, and that was the interesting thing about it. There was no, oh, it's haunted, I go with somebody else when I walk to the toilet. There was none of that. It was, oh yeah, there's been a bit of haunted activity here, but we get on with life. There was no one was particularly bothered. And I guess if it was indeed this Bob character, he was so well loved that they were happy with that.
I think that's excellent. I think that is so excellent because there's massively a stigma around haunted places, and it's always a nasty thing. Or if you're living in a haunted place, it's going to be this terror filled situation. But I do believe that there's good hauntings and bad hauntings, just like there's good people and bad people. And this Bob guy sounds like he's just continuing his best life in that radio station.
Yeah. And again, I think now that I really think about it, the similarity between the photo and with the cough, both of them nearly passed me by. It was only that, whoa, hang on a minute, what was that? The going back and looking at the photo and the stopping and realising, hang on, there's actually no one here that's coughed. That were, those moments that nearly passed me by. They were so subtle, and there was no real follow-up after that.
Knowing what you know today, in both those situations, would you have done anything different?
I think, it's hard because it's been a long time since I've worked at that radio station. I've been gone there for, well over 10 years. But I look at it now and I think, geez, I would love to follow get an investigation happening here. There's people who would be, loving to come and talk about this on the radio and everything. But out of respect for Bob and my colleagues, I don't know if it would have been appropriate. But my God, the itching in me to want to do something would definitely have been there. Yeah, definitely. And what about at the ghost tour in Victoria? Do you wish you went back to the tower or anything like that? Yeah, no, for sure. I only more in recent years because I think, a number of years have passed now. And I certainly at the time it didn't even enter my mind to go back and have another go. But, as these years do start to get away, I would love to go back and try and take another photo again, or at least have a chat to someone that might still be tied to the history of the place.
I'm going to ask you a bit of a question here. It's probably a bit of a loaded question, might put you on the spot a little bit. But what do you think these things are that you've encountered? Do you think they're lost souls? Do you think they're people who have passed on? Or do you think there may be something else?
Well, I can only go on what I believe is the most common explanation from, multiple sources when you do your reading and stuff like that, that it's someone with unfinished business. They've tied to that place. I liken it to, and I don't know if this has ever happened to you, where you can be on the phone to someone really, really late at night and you fall asleep, but you wake up half an hour later apologising for falling asleep on them, but you've said goodbye to them and you've woken up in the middle of the night and thinking that you're still in that moment.
Yeah.
Like these deceased people have passed on, but they've had this moment of feeling like there was something they still needed to be doing.
That is a really good way to put that, because I've never really understood why anyone would feel like there's unfinished business and why would you want to hang around for, essentially eternity. But the fact that they maybe don't realize that they're doing it adds a whole other level of questions as to why these things are sticking around.
Yeah, and I guess, I'm going back to an abandoned asylum for a tour in a couple of weeks, but there's perhaps more sinister ones out there. But certainly for the two that I've encountered with the photo and the cough, these seem like people with no hard feelings to want to harm anybody. They're just floating around. I guess I don't know any other way to word it. They're just floating around and they occasionally feel like they've still got something to be doing.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Believe Paranormal and UFO podcast. If you have had an encounter and you would like to share it, please get in touch with me. My email address is believepod@gmail.com. Finally, don't forget to follow us on all our social media outlets and be sure to join our Discord server to talk to other listeners of the show. You'll find all these links in our show notes. Thank you.